I've read and collected several newspaper articles from the late 60s, early 70s. I've talked to people that were still seeing whatever this thing was in the TNT area, and it was well after 1966, 67.
The Mothman Legacy. It's one of the most terrifying urban legends in America, as seen by some as a harbinger of doom in the rural area of West Virginia. Early sightings and reports, people have claimed that it was spotted by a munitions dump, known by the locals as TNT. Well, in this new documentary, The Mothman Legacy, they delve into the history of the Mothman and talk to eyewitnesses. Apparently, there are reports that the Mothman has returned, or has it ever left?
Some people describe the wings as looking like bat wings. Some describe him as having feathers. He looked flesh and blood, but yet his eyes looked electrical.
By the time I sat up to look out the window, because I thought whatever this was going to fly right into the window, the wingspan of this covered the windows.
This is actually a sequel to Bedlove's previous documentary in regards to Mothman, and he delves way deeper this time in this fascinating new look at this strange creature that people have seen across America. I find it fascinating that even American Indians and Celtics that have traversed the American lands for hundreds of years has talked about this creature, this Mothman.
Mothman, yeah, I like the Mothman as much as I like Bigfoot. The accounts, the witnesses, they all sound legit. You know, the big red eyes, the huge wingspan, it's got skinny little arms and legs. It definitely looks like some sort of bird or owl type of creature.
I almost get the feeling that once it was suggested in the movie that people had seen the Mothman at Chernobyl, I think it became sort of part of urban legend.
It kind of stands up a little bit and puts out what I assume were wings, arms, something. And they reached almost the side of the road.
So I immediately woke up, and when I did, there was this figure standing beside the bed.
The film was not what I expected. I expected it to be a regular documentary, and it felt more cinematic, like a major motion picture. Like a lot of money was invested in this, and the shots were exquisite, very cinematic.
The red-eyed, winged demonic beast seen by locals apparently have said that it's the most terrifying creature that they've come across. I've had many reports submitted to us right here at Third Phase of Moon over the years that this red-eyed beast does actually exist, but we have yet to gain any video or photographic evidence. Until now, in this documentary, The Mothman Legacy reveals terrifying accounts and eyewitness testimony along with these photographs that still have me wondering, is the Mothman back?
Keel did not believe that we were interacting with extraterrestrials. He called them ultra-terrestrials. In other words, something that is earthbound, some sort of phenomenon that originates on Earth that we can sometimes see and interact with. And it might be from another dimension, or it might simply be a little bit outside our normal perceptual abilities.
I remember growing up as a young man reading these books of the Mothman, and I still find it fascinating I'm still leaning towards this creature maybe being a mutation of some sort of toxic waste. Could there have been some sort of chemical that leaked into the ground that created this mutation of a man and maybe a moth put together? It's weird what's going on here, but this documentary delves really deep into it, and it's a really interesting watch, to say the least.
There's the idea that Mothman was a harbinger, and that it culminated with the collapse of the Silver Bridge in December of '67.
Over the years, you know, the Mothman sightings and the Mothman activity has brought up the subject of, was it a harbinger of doom? Was it here to warn people of the Silver Bridge collapse? Honestly, a lot of the people, you know, when the bridge fell, nobody really talked about that a whole lot. They were shocked the bridge had collapsed. But then, you know, you had, you know, the movies were coming out, John Keel's book, and different little things were popping up saying, hey, you know, every time something bad happens, you know, there's a sighting of this creature.
People see this Mothman before death. Not only that, people see Mothman before there's a catastrophe as well. It's very interesting because it's brought up that what if he brings death and misery wherever he goes, or she. But it's interesting because people talk about and even draw the Mothman before something catastrophic happens.
And some of them firmly believe that's true. Some people believe that it created the disaster. Others say no, it just coincided with it. Sightings that looked like they were just giant owls. And the Mothman, it's seen in the dark sometimes, did look like kind of a giant owl.
It's common in folklore for a screech owl. In Welsh, there's the corpse bird. It's a screech owl that comes banging at the window of someone who's ill or sick. And then that motif follows its way into Appalachia too. If you see or hear an owl outside of your window at night making a call, it's a sign that someone's going to die. Likewise, if a bird flies in your house, that's really bad news. Someone is probably going to get hurt or die as well.
You could tell that this is just good hometown folk in West Virginia. And this is just something that's a part of what they've grown up with. And a lot of them have learned not to be out at night. What was really interesting to learn in this film was about the local tribes. I mean, well, not local, but a lot of the tribes stay out of West Virginia, saying it is a cursed state. Now, is this because of Mothman? Who knows? They also discuss the Thunderbird, which is known amongst Indian tribes as a very, very large bird with a wingspan 8 to 10 feet. As such is what is described in the Legend of Mothman.
I was in Calhoun County, West Virginia. Leading Creek Road is outside of Grantsville. My aunt and uncle's old farmhouse. A few months before that, like in the spring, people were talking about like their chickens and stuff coming up missing, you know, overnight. But they would talk about weird noises, but no one had ever talked about actually seeing anything. The farmhouse, there's nothing around it, so there's no other residence for like a half a mile from the house that I was staying in. And it was probably 1987, 88, somewhere around there, summertime. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I was just going to bed from after watching movies and stuff. And across the street from the farmhouse is a holler that goes up on the hill. And I started hearing this noise. You could tell it was some kind of, thought it was kind of a bird type thing. I thought maybe it was an owl or something, but it just kept getting closer and closer and louder and louder. The only way I can describe it is the Hollywood movies, the pterodactyl noises, you know, that's the only way I can describe it. It was that loud.
We were approached by the documentary film team and the producers behind it to share these trailers and behind the scenes sneak peeks at the movie. They're not paying us, we're just sharing it with you because we find it very interesting. There's no sponsorship going on here, but the Legend of the Mothman, in my opinion, it's real.
Piercing, and it kind of had kind of a giggling, loud giggling noise to it too. I mean, it's really hard to describe.
I gotta admit, some of the animation and CGI put into this doco, which recreates this amazing creature-like effect, it's actually quite frightening, and it's in a perfect timing for the Halloween season. There's something that just leaves something in your mind. Is it real? Is it still out there? That's a big question.
By the time I sat up to look out the window, because I thought whatever this was going to fly right into the window, the wingspan of this covered the windows. And then when it got to that part of the house and went up over the house, you actually could hear it. You actually heard the whoosh sound. Again, not sure what I was going to do or what I just seen. Turned around to the back window of the bedroom, and you could see the shadow of whatever this was flying over the field to the back of the house.
You know, a guy saw the Mothman in the corner of a room before a family member died. And some people see it in the middle of a road before they crash into a tree. Or back in that one town in 1967, people saw the Mothman for days before the bridge collapsed.
Mothman is said to be on average 7 feet tall, and that its wingspan is 8 to 10 feet. And one of the gentlemen in this film explains that with physics, it's very difficult for a body of that size to be lifted with a wingspan and that small in comparison. So that was very interesting to discover and learn. And kind of that right there made me question, could it be real? I'm not sure now. I mean, I'm not saying these people, I'm not dismissing any of these people's claims. I'm just, could it be a thunderbird? We have lots of animals that we still have yet to discover on this planet. But it was a very, very good movie. It was a beautiful piece of art to watch as well as to learn these new bits of information.
I've never heard anything like that. I have stayed at that country house all my life, you know, never heard it, never seen it, anything like that again. So not sure what it was, but it was something that was very large and very loud and very fast, because that holler that came out was probably about a mile long.
So it makes you wonder, you know, because that goes alongside with Indrid Cold too, who was said to be possibly a visitor from another planet, I guess, who took the form of a human, but was also possibly affiliated with the Mothman or the Mothman, I'm not sure. But it's a very interesting cryptid because of all the stories that come around. They sound real as anything. To see a flying creature with big red eyes, and then the next thing you know, there's a huge catastrophe in your town, or you pass away, or a family member, it kind of makes you wonder, what is it? People get messages from it, I've heard. They hear voices, and then they see the Mothman. It's a very weird, very scary, very real sounding cryptid, and it's one that I don't think I want to come across. I'd rather come across Bigfoot before I come across a Mothman, because when you see a Mothman, it seems like either you're gonna die, or somebody you know, or something catastrophic's gonna happen. Yeah, pretty scary, and the accounts of the Mothman go back a long way. So, is it an interdimensional being? Is it a super interdimensional being? Man, I don't think we're gonna know. Nobody has anything on video, nothing on audio, but it's a real scary, very prophetic type of cryptid.
I've read and collected several newspaper articles from the late 60s, early 70s. I've talked to people that were still seeing whatever this thing was in the TNT area. And it was well after 1966, 67.
With its legend that's passed for such a long time, for centuries, I'm wondering what's more frightening, an alien encounter, or a Bigfoot encounter, or a Mothman? I'm thinking a Mothman be at the top of the list. Maybe this new documentary might shed a little bit more light into the enigma of the Mothman. More people see it, more people get interested, and they might even go out there and go in search of this elusive creature.
I've read and collected several newspaper articles from the late 60s, early 70s. I've talked to people that were still seeing whatever this thing was in the TNT area. And it was well after 1966, 67.
Some people describe the wings as looking like bat wings. Some describe him as having feathers. He looked flesh and blood, but yet his eyes looked electrical.
By the time I sat up to look out the window, because I thought whatever this was going to fly right into the window, the wingspan of this covered the windows.
I almost get the feeling that once it was suggested in the movie that people had seen the Mothman at Chernobyl, I think it became sort of part of urban legend.
It kind of stands up a little bit and puts out what I assumed were wings, arms, something. And they reached almost the side of the road.
So I immediately woke up, and when I did, there was this figure standing beside the bed.
The Mothman Legacy is available right now. We're providing the link below. It's streaming on all platforms.